Winter, 1814. The War of 1812 has entered its third brutal year. In the wake of America's decisive victory at the Battle of the Thames, the great armies have withdrawn from the western frontier of Upper Canada. What remains is a 200-mile stretch of frozen wilderness, a volatile no-man's land between the American garrison at Amherstburg and the British stronghold at Burlington Heights. This is not an empty void, but a shadow battlefield. The nature of the conflict here has shifted from large-scale conventional battles to a more attritional, psychological, and economic struggle. American raiding parties push deep into the territory, conducting economic warfare, while British regulars, Canadian militia, and their First Nations allies engage in a desperate guerrilla campaign of skirmishes and ambushes. To assert some measure of control, the British have established two new advance outposts in this contested zone, one at Delaware and another at Port Talbot. Here, in the deep snows of the Longwoods, a small but savage conflict is about to erupt. A battle that, while largely forgotten, will become a masterclass in defensive warfare and a testament to the desperate courage of the soldiers who fought it. From the American garrison at Fort Malden, the commander at Detroit, Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Butler, plans a punitive expedition. His objective is clear: seek out and destroy the newly established British outposts at Port Talbot and Delaware. To lead this daring winter raid, he chooses Captain Andrew Hunter Holmes of the 24th U.S. Infantry, a Virginian officer with a growing reputation. On February 21, 1814, Holmes departs with a mounted force of roughly 180 men, a mix of U.S. regulars from several infantry regiments and mounted militia from Michigan. They drag two 6-pounder cannons, essential for reducing enemy fortifications. But the winter landscape is their first enemy. The ground, soft and swamp-like even in the cold, forces Holmes to make a difficult decision near Pointe-au-Pelée. The cannons, bogged down and slowing their advance, must be abandoned. The raiding party is now lighter, faster, but without its heavy firepower. As they near Port Talbot, Holmes's column clashes with Canadian militia. The skirmish is brief, and the militia melt away into the woods. Holmes correctly assumes they are racing to warn the British garrison. The element of surprise is lost. Attacking a prepared position without artillery would be suicide. Holmes changes his objective, turning his column north towards the second British outpost, Delaware. By March 2nd, Holmes is just 15 miles from Delaware. His force, battered by the brutal march, has dwindled to 164 men. That night, a figure emerges from the darkness, a local Canadian resident sympathetic to the American cause. He brings chilling news. The force of militia they had encountered had indeed warned the British outpost, which had sent for reinforcements. A British force of 300 is now marching to intercept them and is less than an hour away. This single piece of intelligence proves to be the turning point of the entire campaign. The tactical situation has completely reversed. Holmes is now outnumbered, deep in enemy territory, and the hunter has just become the hunted. His offensive mission is over. A fight for survival is about to begin. Outnumbered and facing imminent attack, Captain Holmes makes a brilliant tactical decision. He orders a retreat 5 miles back to a position he had noted earlier, a commanding hill on the west bank of the deep, icy ravine carved by 20 Mile Creek. This location, which would become known as Battle Hill, offered a superb natural defensive position. Throughout the night of March 3rd, his exhausted men turn the hilltop into a fortress. Using axes, they construct a formidable abattis, a dense barricade of felled trees, their sharpened branches pointing down the slope towards the enemy. The fortification is not a simple wall, but a carefully engineered U-shaped structure designed to protect their flanks. To make the approach even more treacherous, they pour water down the ravine's steep slopes, which freezes into a slick ice. Captain Holmes's construction was more than just a wall of logs. It was a masterfully engineered trap. The combination of the high ground, the deep ravine, the single narrow bridge, and the icy slopes was designed to funnel the British into a prearranged kill zone, negating their numerical superiority and forcing them into a costly frontal assault. Holmes has turned the frozen landscape into a death trap. The British response is led by Captain James Bosden of the 89th Regiment of Foot. His force is a mix of regulars and provincials, light companies from the elite 1st Royal Scots and his own 89th Regiment, supported by the loyal Kent Volunteers, Caldwell's Western Rangers, and a contingent of First Nations warriors. A combined force of about 240 men. Arriving at 20 Mile Creek late in the afternoon of March 4th, Bosden surveys the American position. His more experienced Canadian officers, like William Caldwell, advise a flanking maneuver. Bosden, a regular officer with a history of being publicly reprimanded for poor judgment, dismisses their counsel. He will rely on the shock and discipline of a bayonet charge to sweep the Americans from the hill. He orders the Rangers and First Nations warriors to engage the American flanks, while he personally leads the regulars in a frontal assault. To the sound of bugles, the attack begins around 5 p.m. The Redcoats charge down into the ravine and onto the narrow bridge, bunching into a tight column, a perfect target. From their protected positions, the Americans unleash what Holmes would later call a most destructive fire. The British front ranks are decimated. Captain David Johnston of the Royal Scots is killed just steps from the American line. Undaunted, Bosden leads the charge up the icy slope, but his men cannot gain a foothold. The Americans, firing from kneeling positions behind their log wall, pour a relentless fire down into the ravine. Bosden himself is shot in the leg. The battle becomes a textbook example of how European linear tactics could shatter against the brutal pragmatism of frontier warfare. The charge collapses into a bloody slaughter. The fighting on the flanks is inconclusive. The Rangers and militia are more successful, but lack the numbers to break the American line, while the First Nations warriors do not press their attack with vigor. As darkness falls, the British, now commanded by a junior ensign, retreat in disarray, leaving their dead and many of their wounded on the frozen battlefield. The battle, lasting less than 2 hours, is a stunning tactical victory for the Americans. Captain Holmes reports his losses as just 4 killed and 3 wounded. The British and their allies are shattered. Their official losses are 14 killed and 52 wounded, including 1 taken prisoner. The toll on the British officer corps is catastrophic. Of the 6 regular officers who led the charge, 2 are killed and 2, including Bosden, are severely wounded. Behind these numbers are stories of profound loss. Lieutenant Patrick Graham of the 89th Regiment, just 25 years old, was buried in a shallow soldier's grave on the battlefield. His family in Perthshire, Scotland, was left only with a childhood portrait and a lock of his hair, which his mother wore in a mourning ring. The only known burial from the battle is that of 18-year-old William Shaw, a local boy serving with the Kent militia, mortally wounded and laid to rest in his family plot. Impressed by the courage of the British charge, the Americans refused to plunder the dead and wounded, a rare act of battlefield chivalry. Despite his victory, Captain Holmes knows he is still outnumbered and deep in hostile territory. At 9 p.m., under the cover of darkness, he abandons his position and begins the long retreat back to Detroit. The British, fearing a larger American force will follow, also abandoned their outpost at Delaware. The Battle of Longwoods, a brief and bloody affair, ultimately changes nothing in the grand strategy of the war. The region remains a contested no man's land. But for the settlers of the Thames Valley, everything has changed. With the British Army withdrawn east, they are left totally abandoned. The strategic vacuum created by the withdrawal of both armies had devastating long-term consequences for the local civilian population. For the remainder of the war, American raiding parties would sweep through the area, pillaging farms and destroying property, leaving many families destitute for over a decade. The battle's true legacy was not written on a military map, but in the official war loss claims filed by the settlers who paid the price for the strategic stalemate.